Hello and welcome to the Weeball Podcast. I'm Luke Crummish. Joining me, as always, is Tyler DeSena, and today we are back for our little NFL show we do early in the week. Tyler, my good and dear friend, how are you?
Doing pretty good. Dolphins got a win. There were a lot of fun games this week, a lot of interesting games this week, and we're excited to recap all of them with you today.
Yeah, listen, I knew the Giants were going to lose. I knew it was going to be ugly, but I am very upset that Daniel Jones did get hurt,
Yeah.
especially because it was the neck injury, which, for those who don't know, in 2021, a neck injury was supposed to be a minor thing for him, and then he missed the final 5 weeks of the season while we were in the playoff hunt versus the Commanders in the Taylor Heineke year where they made the playoffs and almost beat the Bucks. So it is worrisome because obviously anytime it's a neck thing, it's like, ugh.
Especially on a quarterback where it's like so
Yeah.
much of your arm motion, like that's all tied together. It's got to be painful right now, especially like throwing. I can imagine that it's probably going to take a while.
But nevertheless, we're going to move on. We're going to start with what I think is the biggest story in the NFL currently. And it is the fact that there is a very, very clear front runner to win it all this year. And their quarterback is Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy. The 49ers are in a league of their own. Like, it is not a question. I do think the Cowboys might be a little bit fraudulent anyways, but it's just to the point where, like, they're undeniably the best team in the NFL. And they keep getting better. Like, they are improving every week.
I feel like they're the only team that's had convincing wins. Like it's just, or at least convincing wins and then not just baffling losses. Like you want to talk about Buffalo having a convincing win versus Miami. They come out this next week, they lose to the Jaguars in London. Like every team, we just talked about the Cowboys, they've had some really nice wins this season, like against the Giants early on. Like they had some really nice wins where you're like, this is how they should be playing. And then they have a game like that against the 49ers. And the 49ers are the only team where it just looks like they haven't missed a step this entire year. And I mean, they're absolutely on fire. And I think it's clear that they're like the upper class of the NFL right now. And like you said, I think it's fair to say that they're in a tier by themselves. And then everybody else is just kind of battling below them to figure out, who is that team that can kind of challenge them right now.
Obviously, people are always going to talk about Brock Purdy because he is a little polarizing, which is crazy, but he's definitely polarizing because of the fact that he's just like this game manager, point guard type player who is just making the right decisions. 90% of the quarterback position, by the way, is making the right position, like making the right decisions. That is most of the job. And people are hating on him because that's what he's really good at. And I don't quite understand that. Like, I don't think he's like this next level, GOAT level, generational quarterback, but he makes good decisions and he's clearly improved on his decision making since college. Like, this is not, we've seen Brock Purdy
Even
in
since
college.
last year, he's an exponentially better player than he was the last time we saw him, which was in those playoff games where he was still really good, but like he's even better right now.
He's seeing it.
Yeah, we're seeing major improvement from him. I think he's the best quarterback the 49ers have had in this system in a long time. I mean, he's clearly better than Jimmy Garoppolo. Trey Lance didn't work out. And Brock Purdy just kind of brings an element that those quarterbacks didn't with. He has the smart decision making. He's not turning the football over. And he also creates more than they do. I know he's not some big Mahomes level creator, but nobody is. And Purdy's creating at a high clip, it seems, compared to at least what it was last season, even.
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, obviously, his weapons are great, but he has a relationship with his receivers and tight end that we didn't really see with Jimmy G. Like, it felt like it was Jimmy G and the 49ers. This is the 49ers. Like, Brock Purdy's just one of the people. And I think that it helps when he's being paid $900K and they're all being paid $100 million.
They're running this offense the way that this is exactly how Shanahan wants this offense to be run. He wanted to put a little bit more trust in the quarterback, and when they brought in Trey Lance, that was the goal, was to be able to, in a different way, instill more trust in the quarterback, whether it was going to be more zone read type stuff, more running. But now it's more, hey, Brock, go create once in a while when the play falls apart, when you have to do something out of structure. And He's been really good at it. I mean, I know that he's not some elite tier of quarterback, but man, when you combine him with the roster that the 49ers have, that offense, the defense that has just elite players at every single level of it, they are far and away the best team, and it's not close right now.
And then obviously on the defensive side of the ball, they have we keep saying he's the best linebacker, but I think Fred Warner might be the best defensive player in the NFL at this point. Like I don't know
Oh,
how
it's definitely he's definitely on the list.
I don't know
He's
how crazy of a take that is anymore. Like Micah Parsons is incredible, but I've watched him get blown up by Kyle Juszczyk. So uh you
yeah,
know,
like they have Nick Bosa, and that's not even the best player on their defense.
yeah, like it's crazy.
That's yeah. And then they're so deep. Dre Greenlaw is just also awesome. It's like they have Fred Warner, and then they have another guy who can do almost all of the same stuff. And it's like nobody talks about him because Warner exists. And then they have all
Yeah.
these fun DBs who are extremely feisty. They added a bunch of depth in the offseason to like those DB and receiver rooms. They've got contributors just everywhere, and everybody's stepping up, and they're a really good team.
Attention fantasy football fanatics. As draft season approaches, don't neglect the most important draft pick of all, your game balls. We all know how injuries can ruin a season, so let Manscaped take care of that Reggie Bush of yours with their skin-safe technology. That should guarantee you to have a smooth ride into the playoffs. The leaders in the below-the-waist grooming have created a championship lineup with their Performance Package 4.0, and it's time for you to do the same. Join the 9 million men around the world who trust Manscaped and get ready for kickoff by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping when you use code WEBALL. We all know that confidence is the biggest thing, whether it comes to recording a podcast, interviewing professional athletes, playing on the field, or even trimming below the waist. And for that last one, Manscaped has helped out tremendously with their Performance Package 4.0. Inside the Performance Package 4.0, you'll find the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, Performance Boxer briefs, and even a travel bag. Slotted at quarterback, we've got the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer. This spaceship is here to guide you on your journey to trim your body, balls, and even your A-gap. This 4th generation trimmer also features a cutting edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin safe technology. The Lawnmower 4.0 has a 7,000 RPM motor, a new multi-function on-off switch that can engage in a travel lock, and is even waterproof. The Lawnmower 4.0 also has a 4000K LED spotlight, brighter than Bryce Young's future in the end zone. The Performance Package 4.0 also includes the Weed Whacker, the ultimate flex. Watch it run through your ear and nose hairs like Aaron Donald runs through to sack your favorite quarterback. The Weed Whacker is also waterproof and uses 9,000 RPM motor-powered 360-degree rotary dual blade system. This ear and nose hair trimmer provides proprietary skin safe technology which helps reduce nicks, snags, and tugs in those sensitive ear and nose holes. Don't forget to use the Crop Preserver ball deodorant and the Crop Reviver to help your little bench warmers be on their A game while feeling the sun's heat. Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts to the Performance Package 4.0, the Manscaped Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag. So who's the commissioner now? Get 20% off plus free shipping with code WEBALL at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code WEBALL, WEBALL, at manscaped.com. It's time to put the PP back in PPR and get a grip on your pigskin this season with Manscaped.
But I think we're going to probably move on to kind of the best of the rest here. I know that there's a few teams that we have that we think could, find their way into that 49er tier, but they've got to play better. And I don't know if you have a team you want to start out with that you think is in this tier, or if you want to,
Yeah, I'll start. I mean, I think we all know that the Chiefs are a good football team. Mostly because they have the best player in the league, in the face of the league, in Patrick Mahomes, and they have a very good weapon in Travis Kelce. But it's really like the limit of, I don't want to say like world class players that they have, but it's them two. And on the defensive side of the ball, they got maybe one player who's at that level. Like they don't have the star-studded cast that the 49ers have, and that is causing us some problems. Their depth just has to be more consistent.
I think more specifically, it's their depth on offense.
Yes.
I think their defense has been
They're
phenomenal.
solid. Yeah, they're
They're
really
so
good.
good.
It's Spagnuolo. Like, it's a Spagnuolo defense.
But L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie are probably the most underrated cornerback duo in football. You've got Chris Jones up front who absolutely mauls. You got Nick Bolton, who's a really good linebacker. Like, they have a lot of talent on defense. The thing is, who is going to be that X receiver come playoff time? Like, it's not Sky Moore, it's not Kadarius Toney, it's probably not Rashee Rice. There
Tyler
aren't that
hates
many guys.
Rashee Rice, by the way. Just a
Never
reminder.
said that.
That's not true.
However, there are there are just a lot of guys who you think could be like, twos, threes, and fours. And I understand that Travis Kelce is your one, but at some point, I think you need another really versatile receiver. And I know they just won without one, but it seems like it's just going to get tough at some point, and you want to go get your quarterback one more weapon. I wonder if the trade deadline comes and Kansas City starts, ponying up some draft picks maybe to go find a player who might be undervalued elsewhere. The biggest problem might be the fact that the teams that are potentially going to trade wide receivers are in their own division. So it's very unlikely that you see Devontae Adams in a Chiefs jersey.
What about a little cheeky T. Higgins trade?
See, that I really like because it's somebody, it fits a mold that
They'll never do it, but
yeah, and the Bengals will never trade him to Kansas City.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
the problem. And then like Jerry Jeudy is another receiver you could think about, but that's a Bronco, so that's not going to happen. There's just not, the market is weird because a lot of the teams that have receivers either want to keep them or like should want to keep them away from Kansas City. Like they have a vested interest to make sure that they don't end up on the Chiefs. So
yeah,
I wonder if they find some weird value, maybe
Hollywood Brown.
That's a player who certainly could, contribute to them and stretch the field. He's been playing well. And if Arizona feels that they can get value for him, that's a good name. But yeah, moving on to the next team, I think we figured out Kansas City just kind of needs more contributors on offense. Let's talk about my Miami Dolphins because they're 4-1. And I want to say they're in this next tier. And I think it's fair to say at least that they're somewhat in this tier. But if we're going to talk about what needs to get better, it's the defense. It's 1,000% the defense. They are not getting pressure on good teams at all. The good offensive lines that they have faced in the Chargers and the Bills and those aren't even great offensive lines, just absolutely destroyed them up front. Their edge rushing has been just abysmal. Bradley Chubb has been unnoticeable aside from one game against New England where his best play was a fumble where he dropped back into coverage instead of rushing the passer. Like there is not much going up like really well for them up front. They've got Zach Sealer and Christian Wilkins, good football players, not Fangio scheme fits, so they're getting run all over by most teams they play. The back end, I really like when Jalen Ramsey comes back, but the problem is I just think they're going to be death by 1,000 paper cuts. If I'm going to talk about what I think can get them into that tier, it's going to be adding a nose tackle, a real nose tackle. I know that we're talking not necessarily about trade deadline stuff and maybe what teams could do better, but I genuinely think Miami needs to make a personnel move if they're going to make that tier jump. And I wonder if there's like a legit nose tackle that could find their way onto the trade market that Miami would have interest in. Or even if it's not a trademark guy, what if it's like an Akeem Hicks or just somebody
out of retirement, man. Yeah. Let's go. Let's get somebody out of retirement.
Honestly, like we could bring like 40-year-old Vince Wilfork onto the field
just
and he would probably do he'd do a better job run stuffing than we've been doing over the last, few weeks aside from the Giants game. So yeah. Do you have another team?
I do have another team. Listen, I think the Eagles are a very good football team.
They're a great football team. Yeah.
They look a little disjointed. And
yeah,
I think, okay, listen, I know you lost 2 coordinators. I know you lost a few position coaches.
But it looks like that. It looks like you lost both coordinators.
But you have to adapt at this point. Like it's been 5 weeks. Figure it out. You have to adapt. If you're not adapting now, you're not going to adapt come week 12 to not having these coaches. Like, obviously, more snaps will help, but the game is different for you now. Sirianni, you got to do more. You don't have these 2 guys who are like budding superstars at what they do. as your assistants. You have to figure it out. Obviously, I think the two coordinators they have now will eventually be those type of guys because it's just kind of what happens with good football teams. They create good coaches.
They churn them out.
And yeah, it'll happen eventually, but you got to help them to that. Like these coaches don't come out of nowhere and be great. You got to help them there. I think Sirianni is a good leader of men, not a great football coach, but he's a good leader of men. And we are big.
And he's a good staff builder. And that's
Exactly.
the biggest part of it. And if you can just get those guys up to snuff, I think that's the biggest thing.
They just got to get there.
I think the biggest thing is I don't think their OC. I'm gonna look up who their current actual OC is because I would like to
say his
just
name.
Yeah. I think it's Brian Johnson. I
knew it was Johnson. It doesn't.
Yeah, I knew it was Johnson, but Ben's the Lions one.
Yeah.
But Brian Johnson is you can tell that he gets that the ingredients are there, but there are just times where the play sequencing seems off and a lot of the stuff just seems like vanilla. Like there was so much to the Eagles that had so much flair last year, and it was like necessary flair because it just added extra elements to their offense, and it felt like they were timing up the runs and the play action. And that was so much of what their scheme was built on was like runs and then just like timely shots down the field to AJ Brown who would go moss somebody. So I think that's just going to come with time, like him learning the ins and outs of rhythm in play calling and the fact that he has such good talent around him. Yeah, and they are, to be fair, they haven't lost a game yet. They're playing really good football.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're undefeated.
Yeah. I keep forgetting that they didn't lose this week.
They're playing really good football overall, but I think that needs to get solved. And then on defense, I think they're slowly finding their own, but I think the big thing is I don't think that secondary is nearly as good as it was last year. And with the safety depth that they don't really have, they're playing Sidney Brown a lot. And I know that it's early in his career, and that's a player we like, but
I really like Sidney Brown.
You're looking for him to contribute immediately on a Super Bowl team. Like I wish there were more veterans around him. You lost CJ Gardner-Johnson. You lose you were able to bring back a Darius Slay and a James Bradbury, but I think that secondary might be a bit of an issue. We'll see how it goes. They've got young guys who kind of just have to step up into their roles, and because it's the Eagles, I kind of expect them to do so.
Yeah,
but that's Philadelphia. I think if we want to do one last, team, I don't know if you have another one, but I feel like the team we should probably bring up is the Buffalo Bills.
Yes,
because I think they're probably the last team in this tier. It's hard to bring up the Cowboys because of the fact that they just got blown out by the team that's in tier 1. They've got a lot of stuff to fix. There's injuries. I don't think they're as bad as that that score showed, but I think the last team we want to bring up, I think the last team to bring up is the Bills.
I agree,
and I think a lot of it just comes down to, is the identity there? Is there I don't think this team matches what Buffalo football should look like. They don't run the ball nearly enough, in my opinion. I think that their run game is very finesse based. They brought in Latavius Murray, who's done a pretty good job, but that's not the power running back that you're going to want to go play for you down the stretch in the playoffs. And as much as I like James Cook, those aren't the backs that typically go off in the playoffs. The Isaiah Pacheco's, the Jerick McKinnons that we see of the world that play for Kansas City. James Cook's a good player, and he might be close to a Jerick McKinnon type, but he's not the pass protector or the
McKinnon's X factor.
Pacheco is.
Yeah, he doesn't have the X factor. He's a good back who doesn't have the thing that he does really well that will carry him through the playoffs.
And he became Jerick McKinnon, a really good pass protector. And then that's why Kansas City started playing him. And then he was a solid runner. You just need to be the all-around guy that can get enough power, like a Samaje Perine type who's done well when he was with the Bengals last year. Those kind of running backs, even if it's a number 2, it seems like every team kind of has one. And I don't think Buffalo, every good team kind of has one. But I don't think Buffalo necessarily does. I don't think their offensive line is great. And I think that's just kind of the big thing is their physicality up front. And now losing Matt Milano for an extended period of time, losing Tre'Davious White for the rest of the season, you're looking barren on defense. And I have to say, I do trust Sean McDermott to still coordinate a really good defense. My concern still lies with this Bills offense and just the fact that I don't know what you're going to get every week because I feel like they're so Josh Allen reliant and they just don't do much else.
Yeah, it can't be Josh Allen hero ball. Josh Allen is a great quarterback. You can't have him constantly playing hero ball. I'm sorry. Like,
You can't have any quarterback in that situation.
exactly.
No quarterback is going to win playing the amount of hero ball Josh Allen has to play. So Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs won the Super Bowl last year because they were able to, down the stretch, run the ball, play good defense, and score timely. They weren't like some buzzsaw because their quarterback was throwing 60 times a game and like running the ball an extra 5.
Yeah. Again, it's a situation where you just got to kind of help the guy out. Like, you just got to help your team. They just have to be more strong, like stronger, quicker, fat. Everything needs to just improve a tick, and it will all start to come together. And I think a big part of that is the running back position. Maybe they look into picking somebody up, but
I wonder if a guy like Samaj P. Ryan is available because now the Broncos have Jaleel McLaughlin who's playing
yeah,
really well. Javonte Williams is still young. This team isn't nearly as good as they thought they were going to be. I would not hate to see some. I mean, I would as a Dolphins fan, but as an objective NFL watcher, I feel like putting Samaj P. Ryan in a Bills uniform could do wonders for this team. Getting somebody who pass protects, catches the ball out of the backfield, just kind of does everything right as a second back. I wonder if that could kind of be the extra punch they kind of need. And then when these guys like an Osiris Torrance start to develop on the line, that's when you kind of see this team just take off down the stretch.
yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think it's time to move on and talk about kind of the other end of the spectrum. And that would be all of the teams who are horrible at football.
And there's a
Including
lot.
there's a lot of them. And there are a lot of really bad teams this year. I thought there was going to be some bad teams. I didn't think there'd be this many. I didn't think my Giants would be one. But the Patriots, the Panthers, all of these teams, the Commanders, the Bears, the Broncos, the Jets, like the list doesn't end. And I'm like, somebody's got to the Raiders. Somebody's got to figure it out eventually.
Yeah,
We
it
can't
just
all get
feels
Caleb Williams.
it feels like there's just too many teams right now that are not good. It doesn't feel like there's a middle class. I don't feel like there's any teams that are like, oh, that team's all right. It feels like every team's either really good right now, like like top 5-ish, and then the rest of the teams are just really bad. So I have zero clue what's going on. But yeah, I mean, some of these teams are big shocks. Minnesota, I know a lot of people expected a fall off from them. I certainly did not expect it to be this hard of like 1-4 start. New England, they were so good up front and their defense should be amazing. Like I don't 1-4, just getting blown out by the Saints. Mac Jones has been benched back-to-back weeks. I have no clue where that's coming from. They just feel like a team that be overperforming. Maybe it's because I'm not used to it, but that certainly seems like part of it. Denver, I mean, I feel like there's a good football team in there somewhere. Like I feel like if you just like there's something that needs to be deconstructed with Denver because Russ can't be good and you have these good receivers and there's like some really good defensive players and then all of it adds up and it's bad. And that makes no sense to me because honestly, Russ is having a pretty solid year. The Giants, I mean, that's a team that you obviously, I know it's bad, it's sad for you, but like they overperformed last year, but expecting them to start out 1-4 and now losing 3 in a row. And now they've got, the Bills this week. It's just Carolina being the only winless team in the entire league. I didn't see them not winning a game in their first 5. There's so many teams and there's so many shockers. I wonder how many of them turn it around or if this is kind of the way the league's going to be where it's just good teams beating up on the bad teams.
I mean, with certain teams, it is just a matter that they have to help their players, specifically their quarterbacks. Teams like Carolina, I think Denver needs to help Russ a little bit. Like those teams, I think long term will be fine. Maybe Russ ends up leaving the Broncos. There's a little bit of bad blood with Sean Payne, it feels like. But I think Carolina, like long term, will be fine. I don't think they're going to be any good this year. But like the Raiders, they're in need of a coach firing. I'm starting to think
to blow it up. Like there's
yeah,
no reason for them to be. What are you trying for? 7-9,
exactly.
7-10. I mean, like, are you
I
trying to
mean,
just like hope you can sneak into the wild card? Like there was no intention of winning that division when you brought in Jimmy G and didn't improve much of the roster. Like I don't understand what the long-term solution is there.
But like the Cardinals, we knew were going to be bad. The Panthers, we knew were going to be bad. These teams, we expected it. But like, what is the next step for Minnesota? Because do they blow it up? They have a generational wide receiver. I feel like you can't.
Yeah, I mean, because does Jefferson's timeline really fall in line with
A rookie quarterback?
like a rookie quarterback that might not be good? Like, you can't expect that you're going to draft like Lamar Jackson or something. Like, you can't expect that you're going to draft a quarterback who's great in year one because they just don't exist. So that's at
Unless
least,
CJ Stroud.
that's at least not next year. And then,
Yeah.
and then potentially the year after, maybe. But then, even then, you probably have traded away a bunch of your roster. And then Jefferson's going to be playing on probably the first year of a mega extension.
It's just the team building doesn't add up, and their GM's a very smart guy, but
Yeah,
not a
there's
good.
just so many teams like that it's just like, where's the window?
Yeah,
you
like what is the window for the Jets right now?
I mean, like, I feel like they're closer than everyone else is because it's like get a really good quarterback in there, like the fine, which is why after Rodgers, like, but I mean the offensive line's not great, but overall it's like bring in a really good quarterback, make a few timely signings, you're probably a Super Bowl contender just because of how good their defense is and
But
how
they're
good
gonna have to
Garrett
pay a
Wilson
lot of
is.
those guys soon.
Yeah, but now that the window's been pushed to your back, you're not winning it all with Zach Wilson, and it's just what is. I don't know. Does Aaron Rodgers stay? I'm assuming he does, but if he doesn't,
is he
like,
good
does he
next
retire?
year?
Is he actually good? Like coming off of an Achilles, I know that it's modern day medicine and all, but that has been a death sentence for players in the past. Like,
Yeah,
that's still one of, if not the most severe injury you can get as a football player. Like when it comes to like season enders. I mean,
like what's the next step for the Giants, man? Like if you
again,
Saquon's
another
gone,
team where you just paid
Waller's
a
gone.
bunch of guys. Yeah, Waller, you just went out and you spent draft capital. I know it wasn't much to go get him, but like
a
you
third.
just paid Daniel Jones $40 million. Like, when's the out?
And now Daniel Jones has a second neck injury in his career, and like it's a bad situation to be in because they overperformed by so much last year.
Yeah, and then because they overperformed, there was no roster overhaul that was likely going to come no matter the result, as long as it wasn't a playoff win. They were likely going to blow it up.
They had to rush it.
Completely overhaul the roster. It was going to be, hey, let's go win, 5 games, end up with a top 10 pick, blow up the roster, and then figure it out from there. But then all of a sudden you
coach too well.
Yeah. When you had a coach who had like one of the best coaching jobs in football, there's just too many teams right now where you don't really know what the window is. And I wonder if a lot of them are just going to move on. A lot of them, I feel like we're in a really weird spot. It's going to be interesting to see how many of these teams potentially fire coaches towards, this season, or wait until the end of the season, or don't fire anybody and just start making more pushes. At the end of the day, I'm clueless on it.
The NFL is in a weird spot right now. And speaking of weird spots, next week's schedule of games is a weird one. The slate is strange, but we are here to give you our game of the week. Last week, my game of the week was a good one, and Tyler's was a dud. I'm hoping for more of the same this week. And I'm going to go first this time. I believe I let you go first last time. I am picking, drumroll please, the Lions and the Bucks, mostly because I'm way too invested in Baker Mayfield right now. It finally feels like Bake grew up. Bake's turning into the vet like that everyone's gonna love for the next few years, and he's gonna go around and do a really good job and win some games and have fun, and the whole city's gonna love him. But he's gonna play the team out of Caleb Williams and then out of Arch Manning or Drew Aller or whoever. He's gonna play him out of top quarterbacks in a very Fitz-magic-y sense, except this is a guy who was supposed to be a franchise quarterback, a franchise player, if you will. And it feels like he didn't really get any help from the Browns. So I'm very pro Baker right now, and the Lions are a lot of fun. Like, they're a fun team to watch play football right now. Big Sam Laporta guy, so that is my game of the week.
Also a big Sam Laporta guy myself. We know this. He was my tight end 2 last year, so I'm hyped to see him absolutely dominating. And also just like if the Buccaneers win this game, like I know we look at their record and we see 3-1. The Buccaneers win this game, they will be 4-1. Like, you don't need any other explanation. If they win this game at home against the Lions, they will have 4 wins and 1 loss, which is just insane considering that some people thought they might be like one of the worst teams in the NFL. Very much overblown. It's insane. I think just they are. That is honestly the game of the week. I'm going to make a pick here. I'm going to go with Seattle and Cincy. These are 2 teams that should be a lot like, I mean, I think Seattle's playing relatively where they are, but Cincinnati's a team where it's just like I felt like they were going to be a lot better. And, obviously the Burrow injury, the offense has been just, I think they scored their first half touchdown of the season this past game. Yeah, they've been awful on offense, but they just absolutely balled out against the Cardinals, which I know it's the Cardinals, but yeah, and Andre got a catch. Shout out to Andre. A nice toe drag catch. I mean, does it get any better than that? But the Bengals are just they're looking like they're on the up, and they need a win really badly. And now you're going against the Seattle team that kind of mirrors the Bengals a little bit on offense. Like, you've got 3 really good receivers on each team. You've got the fun quarterback who just excels at hitting the deep ball, and Geno Smith and Joe Burrow.
Pretty good running back.
And a pretty good running back, although I don't really want to talk about Joe Mixon. I think that this could be a really good game. I think it has shootout potential. I don't think Louis Anarumo is going to probably let it get to a shootout because I think he's a really good defensive coach. I think Seattle's got some good defensive players, but I would love to see this game be like like a classic between these 2 teams, just because they're both so much fun with their offensive personnel.
And that is all for the Weeball podcast. Like, comment, subscribe, leave a rating. Thank you for watching, listening, all of that type of stuff that you do with your ears to take in our information. And we will see you later this week for our college football /NFL draft show.
Peace.